Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm going to be doing my October wrap-up, and this video is being sponsored by Simon & Schuster. I had a pretty decent reading month. I started off with a bang and I was trekking through books left and right, but here towards the end I started to slow up and I struggled a bit, but I still read quite a few books this month. So let's get started with the first book I read this month, and that is The House of Ivy and Sorrow by Natalie Whipple. This book is about a girl who has spent 10 years hiding from a curse that killed her mother. Until one day she finds out that she's gonna have to face the man who cursed and killed her mother. Dun dun dun! So spooky scary, not really. I actually really hated this book. I had several problems with this book. I liked the overall idea of the story, but I just don't think it was executed very well. The characters were annoying, the plot was predictable, and there was not enough backstory, and so it caused a few plot holes. And I really had high hopes for this book because going into it, the first chapter was written so beautifully, but as the story went on, the writing fell flat. And I ended up struggling my whole way through this book, but I ended up finishing it. So I've read it, I didn't like it, wouldn't necessarily recommend. I do like the cover though. Got a nice cover, that's for sure. Then I read the graphic novel, The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, with art by P. Craig Russell and a bunch of other artists. This graphic novel is actually an adaptation of Neil Gaiman's original novel, The Graveyard Book. I have yet to read the original novel, but I decided to jump into the graphic novel because I just was in the mood for a graphic novel, so I jumped into this sucker. This book is about a boy who ends up being raised by a bunch of ghosts in a graveyard after his parents are murdered one night. It was a really interesting graphic novel. Going into this, I had heard several amazing things about this story, and I was not disappointed. Like I said, several different artists actually collaborated on this graphic novel, so it was really interesting because as you flip through, you see the art begin to change and you get thrown all these different art styles, and it was really interesting. I keep saying interesting, but guys, it was interesting. Then I read Black Ice by Becca Fitzpatrick, and this is actually the Booksplosion book of the month, and we'll be having a live show discussion for this book on November 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you still have time to pick up this book and join us for the live show. I think it's going to be an interesting live show because we've all got pretty mixed feelings about this book. I personally really enjoyed my time reading this book. I know that several people have just been like, ugh, this book, but I personally had a fun time reading it. So this book is about two girls who decide to take a trip up to the mountains over spring break, and on their way up they get stuck in a snowstorm and then get taken hostage. Ooh, so creepy. I know, right? I, for the most part, enjoyed this book, but I think that's because going into this book, I didn't have very high expectations. I wasn't going into this book to be completely blown away, and so I ended up enjoying my time reading this book. I definitely had some problems with it, but for the most part, I had a good time reading it. I think one of the main problems that I had with this book were the characters. The main character was absolutely annoying. The side characters, some of them, it just didn't even make sense as to why they were in this book because they were just kind of pointless. They were just there. And I also just felt like the characters overall were pretty dry and didn't have much personality. Another thing that I didn't like about this book is that it has several slow moments, and I was kind of expecting it to be fast, exciting, action-packed, but it kind of lacked in that area. Something that I did enjoy about this book though was the atmosphere of this book. I like that it took place on a mountain in a snowstorm because I think it really added this nice scary factor to the story. And while the plot is predictable, I thought that that was kind of fun, being able to predict the plot. Some people might see that as a flaw, and I can definitely understand that, but I personally had a fun time trying to figure out who to trust, who not to trust, and what was going to happen in the end. But overall, I really enjoyed Black Ice. Next up, I read Zombie by Darren Shan, and this is the first book I've ever read by Darren Shan. I know that several people wanted me to read Cirque du Freak before I jumped into Zombie, and I kind of understand that now because I wasn't super blown away by Zombie. If you don't know what Zombie is about, it's about a zombie outbreak that takes place in Ireland. The main thing that I didn't like about this book was the father in this story. He's abusive, he's racist, and he's just a downright terrible person, and it was just really frustrating to see his effect on his child because his child kind of started to pick up on the father's bad habits, and it just was so hard to read that, and it was just so frustrating. Another thing that I didn't really like about this book is that it took forever to get to the actual zombie breakout, and once we get to the zombie breakout, there's only like 30 pages of zombie craziness, and I wanted more. I wanted this whole book to be about a zombie breakout, but it was really only the last 30 so pages. There were things that I did enjoy about this book though. One, I loved the illustrations. I thought that the illustrations were just a fantastic element to add to the story, and there were also some pretty great plot twists that were thrown into this book, and I was not expecting them at all, so good job Darren Shan on that aspect. I will definitely be continuing on with this series because I think it has potential to be really fun and interesting. So definitely going to be continuing on with this series. Then I picked up Frankenstein with illustrations by Gris Grimley and original text by Mary Shelley. This is my second time reading the story Frankenstein. Obviously this time was a little bit of a different experience because I got a very nice visual element, and I think that it really added to the story. I really like the story of Frankenstein, but I think I enjoyed it even more having a visual element to go along with it. So I really enjoyed this graphic novel. If you are struggling with classics, I would highly suggest picking this one up because it just kind of makes it more exciting to read it, I guess, because you get pictures. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Frankenstein. I don't have much else to say about it, but I really enjoyed this. Then I finished the Deadly Class bind-up containing comic books 1 through 6 in the Deadly Class series. I've talked about this comic book series before on my channel, and I just freaking love it so much. It's about this high school for assassins, and it's just so good. I just can't get over how good it is. I'm kind of overhyping it, but I don't care because I love it. It's fantastic. The illustrations are absolutely amazing and striking and beautiful. Look at all those colors. So beautiful. One negative thing that I will say about this book is that I do feel a major lack in connection with any of the characters. I don't really feel attached to any of the characters, but I think that might just because I'm not used to the story format yet. This is really the only comic book series that I've read, but I would highly recommend this bind-up if you're looking to get into a comic book series. And finally, I picked up In Real Life by Cory Doctorow and Jin Wang. I loved this graphic novel so much. It was amazing. And here's the thing, there's nothing groundbreaking about the concept of this story, but I still enjoyed this graphic novel so much, and I really hope that Cory Doctorow and Jin Wang collaborate on more projects because I think that they just are fantastic together. This story is about a girl who is a part of an online role-playing multiplayer game, and she befriends somebody who is doing something illegal within the game, and so she's having mixed feelings and struggling with the idea of doing what's right and what's wrong and losing friendships and just all that jazz. I absolutely loved the art style, and I think that that's what drew me in right off the bat. It's a very quirky art style with lots of vibrant colors. And I loved the overall setting of this book. I just love books that take place on like an online virtual world. So cool, so freaking cool, the best. So those are all the books and graphic novels I read this month. You guys should let me know down below what your favorite book of the month was. Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you soon with a new video. Later. Whoa, falling over. Awesome. And that is the House of Nod. And one day she has... And one day she has to... What? And one day she figures out... And one day... What am I even trying to say? And one day she does the what? This book is about two girls who decide to take a trip to the mountains on their spring break. Another thing that kind of frustrated... Then I... What? The actual heck?